Welcome to episode number 23 of Believe Something Better. I can see your face. If you hear a little girl in the background, a kid in the background, it is my daughter. She is here while I'm recording this. She's probably going to come out here in just a moment because she's going to wonder why Daddy's talking so much. But that is just what's happening right now. I'm at home. I am recording. I'm choosing to record this while here. I'm going to turn my phone on to vibrate while I think about it too, so that way it doesn't interrupt this. And yeah, today we're talking about Bible, specifically it's going to be like story Bibles. If you don't know already, if you haven't figured it out, I love Bibles. I have an entire mini series on this channel about Bibles, and well, it is what it is. I love Bibles. I'm hopefully going to be having another episode of that mini series come out. It's been quite a while since I had that come out, and it's just been a lot of I haven't had a lot of thought into that. I recently was given Good versus Evil. I don't know. It's essentially a graphic novel Bible. I don't know if this one was the first one or if they copied the Action Bible. But I know that I want to get a copy of the Action Bible. I haven't yet, and do a review on that one. I've heard a lot of good things about the Action Bible. I'd heard a lot of good things about this. I was given this one. One of the things that I found out about it once I was looking at it was it is put out by Michael and Debbie Pearl. You can see here, you can see author right there is Michael Pearl. And so it's put out by them and by their ministry, which doesn't see, and they kind of hide that, which kind of bugs me. You have to get all the way into the book to find out what that ministry is. They don't put anything on the cover of the publisher or anything like that, which is not great when it's coming from this sort of place. No Greater Joy Ministries is their ministry, and they put out a lot of things. They have a really famous book among the conservatives called Created to Be His Helpmeet. They have lots of things among conservative circles. One of their books is Train Up a Child, and it's about teaching children. I haven't read Created to Be His Helpmeet. I never dabbled into that. I'm not a woman. I didn't feel it was my place to read that one. I have read reviews of it by people I trust, and I've learned that it may not be the best book. I also I read Train Up a Child, and I read a lot about their theology and found out a lot about their theology and disagree with them on many things. Now, that being said, they are my brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm not here to bash anybody's point of view. If you hadn't noticed, that's not my intent or my goal. But I want to talk about this. I was trying to read through this for the sake of doing a review of it, and after a while of reading it, I just couldn't bring myself to continue going through it. It's a really thick, really well illustrated graphic novel, really well illustrated, and it really is a great, as far as that's concerned, setup. I mean, you have a lot of traditional drawings, and things like that, where like Elijah looks like you'd expect Elijah to look right here. And so it's just, but my issue came down with just the additions that are in there. I mean, the theology really comes out in the additions of weird things. So, like the creation of mankind. Okay, they believe in creation ex nihilo, which means they believe that God created everything from nothing without any processes of evolution or anything like that. And it says, right here it says, on the sixth day, with the evil ones watching, God formed a new creature from the dust of the ground. God breathed his own life into the body of clay, and the man became a living soul. He was made in the image of God, higher than the animals. And so, at the surface, that doesn't bug me. I mean, yeah, on the sixth day, God formed a new creature from the dust of the ground. God breathed life into him. It's this whole weird thing about the evil ones watching that bugs me. I mean, and then they kind of take some liberties with a serpent. They have the opinion that the serpents were different before they were cursed, which I know a lot of conservatives have, which is fine. That, again, doesn't bug me. It's just this weird mentality of things that they have with the evil ones watching. And then it continues from there. That's not the only one place where we have things. I mean, like, that's adding to the text. If I were to read you Genesis chapter 6, the sixth day, Genesis chapter 1, creating the creation of the sixth day, in any literal translation. So this is the ESV. This is my ESV pit minion. You've seen it on the channel before. It says about the creation of man. It says, then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created him in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them. And God said, where does it talk about evil spirits in here? I mean, that is a complete addition to the text that makes no sense from the previous setting. There's nothing that we read about that would make that, even in here, there's nothing in here that we would add that interpretation. And there's just some weird things as far as reading goes. I mean, it continues, and they definitely add this weird slant to their study. And definitely, as you read through it, adds some weird things. You can see their interpretation being heavily laid upon this. Just things that weren't necessarily things that are outside of the Bible, I guess, is what I'm coming what I'm coming to. That we have just kind of it's just kind of weird things per se. You know what I mean? And so then then we get here to Abraham, and I think this is where I was just like, you know what? Nope. Because if we're adding this much to the text, we're having problems. So I guess to start off with, I'm going to mark where I am right there. I want to read the section about Abraham in Genesis. So this is coming out of the ESV again. I could read it out of the NIV and it'd be the same. I mean, you can't change it that much to make things that different. So first, with Abraham, it talks about Shem's descendants, and it gets to Terah, which is chapter 11, verse 26, verses 24 through 26. It says, when Nahor had lived 29 years, he fathered Terah. And Nahor lived after he had fathered Terah 119 years, and he had other sons and daughters. When Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Now, these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in the presence of his father, Terah, in the land of his kindred, in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. The name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren; she had no children. Terah took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his grandson, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Okay, so that's the start, the foundational premise of the story of Abraham. Terah took him to leave and go to Canaan, and then God called him when he was in Haran to further continue to go to all the way to Canaan. But that's not what this says. This adds a ton of information that no one could possibly know. There was one man named Abraham who did not believe that statues were really gods. He knew that God was the creator and could not be worshipped through idols. God spoke to him, saying, "Abraham, leave this country, leave this city of idolatry, leave all your family and country behind, and I will show you where to go. I will make you the father of a great nation. I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse those that curse you. In you all the nations of the earth will be blessed." And so, at the start, we add information to the story that's not biblical. One of the things that I've been contending with or dealing with in my study is so often in Christianity, in modern day Christianity, we add on to peoples of this time a mentality that's foreign to them. Okay, so when you are reading through the stories, we end up adding on this idea, like they knew that God was the only God. That is something that evolved, quite frankly. The time way back now that, the false religions had spread far and wide by this point. Different languages means different people praising God in different ways. And the false religions has spread, and so we add on to this mentality that, well, there is but one God, and we believe the Jews believed in that one God. Period. The gods of Egypt were not gods. The gods of this nation were not gods. The gods of that nation were not gods. Period. Cut and dry. End of sentence. End of statement. That's just not the case. Why do you think that they fell to believing in false gods so easily? It's because they didn't believe that there was one God. They believed that there was many, but when they believed in Yahweh, they believed Yahweh was the most powerful God. He was their patron, almost like you think of like a patron saint sort of thing. And that's kind of the thing. You pray to a patron saint because he's the one who has special miraculous power over this area, and then you pray to a different patron saint when you need a different. And so it was kind of that way that gods were patrons to different kings. They were patrons to different nations. We see it in Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, his name deals with being the son of, or the blessed son of Nebo, which was a god of the Babylonians. And so It has to do with the fact that his father chose Nebo as his patron, for him, and it's this mentality that, well, there's just one God and the rest are all just fake idols, was not present in the time of Abraham, or the time of Moses, or the time of the early Israelites. It did not occur until after the Babylonian conquest. It didn't really start happening. And so we're adding in all of these filters based upon our own mentalities that don't occur in the text. They believed in other gods. They believed that other gods had power, which is why they were so easily drawn away from the true God. Now we have come to understand those other gods are not true. They don't exist. And that's where we are now. That's something that happened, and you see it in the beginning of the New Testament. So by the 1st century AD, we have that cemented in there. Not before. You're not really listed before, except in prophecies and prophetics, because God showed that he was the only God, but humankind has a propensity to not listen to God. But I guess my issue was, where I started with all this is, great. Okay, it may present the gospel to somebody that's never heard it before. I've read a lot of positive reviews about it. But for me, I'm sitting there, why are we adding so much to the Bible? Someone uses this with their kids, and their kids read this and they go, okay, this is the Bible. I'm trusting in this to be faithful to this. Not just this, not this translation, but to the Bible. And there's some liberties that are taken based upon methodology of translation, whether it is a formal equivalent, or whether it's a dynamic equivalent or something in the middle. There are liberties that go along with that, but the issue comes down to, if this is not faithful, I have a hard time recommending it. So I was going to do a review, and then I was going to be, and the more I read through it, the more things that I had to start crossing out. Like, I have to point this out, that this is just extraneous extrapolations added to the text. I have to add this. So if I were to give you a review, all in all, from the standpoint of a mature Christian, I can see that there are things that are not here, and it's based upon the theology of Debbie and Michael Pearl, whatever. On the other hand, would I want to give this to my daughter to read it? Well, no. It's not faithful enough, in my opinion, to the text to be something. As a storybook, that you look at storybook Bibles. I'm rebinding one for my daughter right now, because she wanted Daddy to put a new cover on it like he's done with other Bibles. I'm rebinding one. I'm rebinding the Adventure Bible. And it's more faithful to the text, in my opinion, than some of the information that's being added to this. That's a storybook Bible. It's supposed to be succinct, easy to read, no big deal, right there for the kids. And I have a problem with that. This is supposed to be like the next evolution of storybook Bibles. That you're getting the teenagers that want to read the comic books and the graphic novels and things like that. That's what this is supposed to be. And I don't know. I want to get my hands on a copy of the Action Bible, because I want to see whether the Action Bible is equivalent to this, if it does a better job or what. I was really disappointed with how much information is added to the text that nowhere states, nowhere. Just that introduction to Abraham, or that mentality that the evil ones, in the presence of the evil ones. Just this there was one man named Abraham who did not believe that the statues were really gods. Where does it say that? In fact, if you get into the Bible and you read the true word of God, you find out that it was his father that actually took him from Ur, from the Chaldeans, to Haran, and it says that it was his father, Terah, who planned on going from Ur of the Chaldeans, or Chaldeans, as I pronounced it when I was reading it, all the way to Canaan. It was his father. We don't have any revelatory statements about his father. Maybe God revealed himself to his father. I don't know. And I can't say with certainty because the Bible doesn't tell us. Why was he going to Canaan? I don't know. We know that Abraham and Terah, his father before him, came from a favored line because of some curses that were put on people. But I don't know. I'm kind of rambling now, and it gets on my own nerves when I start rambling. But I guess to start off with, I would say, sure, for mature Christians, if you want to read the Bible in a different way, it's kind of fun to read it as a graphic novel, and it kind of gives you a different point of view of things and kind of brings some pictures into clarity. But I have an issue. I take a huge issue when you start adding things to the text, and the pearls very heavily do this, and it makes me question the pearls in their mentality of when they read the Bible. Are these things that they are subconsciously or even consciously adding into the text as they're reading it? Because that's not good either. That will give a lot of skewed things. And so just read it with a critical eye the first time, so that way you know things. And then and I would say, if you're going to give this to a child, whenever you plan on giving anything to a child, it's very important, if it's a resource like something like this, that you have a good grasp on what it says, and you have a good grasp on what this says first. Okay, guys, that's where I guess I'm going with this. I'm not trying to bash the pearls. I'm not trying to bash on them in the slightest. Just make sure that you have a good grasp on what truly is in the Word and what is not in the Word. Things like, there's been all sorts of things through our history of what people think are in this book, and they come to find out it's not present in the slightest. Like, God helps those who help themselves. You know what I mean? Or the fact that supposedly Christians need to be under the law of Moses, or need to keep the ordinances of the law of Moses, and it's like you can't fit these things together, and it starts to have problems when you start to try to build this weird theology. Because why are we under one law of Moses but not under other laws of Moses? Why are we under this commandment but not that commandment? And so, I mean, like, even to the point comes down to, like, the greatest commandments that were given to us to follow have nothing to do with the 10 Commandments and the holy ordinances. They were commandments that are found in other areas, one in Leviticus and one in Deuteronomy. And that's the two greatest commandments are love God with all with everything you are. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. Love God with everything you are. And the other one is love your neighbor as yourself. And these are just pulled from the text. And I mean, the Apostle Paul in Galatians said that loving your neighbor as yourself fulfills the whole rest of the law. And the Lord Jesus gave us a new commandment. And that new commandment was for us to love one another as He has loved us. And so, I mean, and then you get into 1 John, and it says that we know that those who are saved are those who keep the commandments. And then it comes down in chapter 3, verse 25. Chapter 3, I believe it's verse 25. It's either verse 25 or 23. But he says in that and these are His commandments, that we believe on Him who He has sent, and we love one another just as He commanded us. And that's something that you can really appreciate about John. If John is speaking on the commandments, he never leaves you high and dry. He immediately tells you at the end of it what those commandments are. And so, verse 23, not 25. There isn't a verse 25 in chapter 3. So it says, and this is His commandment, that we believe in the name of His Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another just as He commanded us. So, I mean, those are the commandments that we have to keep in order to be saved, is belief and love. And so when it comes right down to it, people that, like chapter 15 of John has had a lot of flack about losing your salvation, or this or that or something else. When it comes right down to it, the commandment and the fruit in the beginning, that it's a very loose metaphor, that there's two types of branches, those who bear fruit and those who don't. The ones that bear fruit, in my opinion, are those who believe in love. Simple. That's the initial fruit that shows that you are part of the vine and will not be cut out. The other person who does not bear that fruit, they get cut out. And so it's not about losing your salvation. It's you never had the salvation. Now, if you do end up sometime in your life believe just because you're cut out. So for me, I see two things: a temporal cutting out and an eternal cutting out. The temporal is in verse 2 of chapter 15, that you will be cut out of the vine. You won't receive the benefits of being in the vine, is what that means. Okay, guys, it's not a matter of, well, you won't ever have the possibility of being saved. Well, Paul says in Romans, he says, don't be too prideful about the fact that you've been grafted in, because you could be cut out and the original branch be grafted in. So temporally, we should be trying to reach people, and that these people that have been cut out because they don't believe and they don't love, they can be grafted in back into the vine later and become true Christians because they bear fruit. I had a bunch of branches come down on my property, and these branches are dead essentially, right? They during the winter we had some snow and branches are on the ground and everything, and so I'm piling them up. Guess what I have growing out of those piles? Fresh new growth off of these branches. Okay, so the branch that's cut off, it can bear fruit, and then it will be grafted back in. And then the verse 6 about them being the ones that are cut out, they get withered and they're thrown away into the fire and burned. Well, though that's the eternal cutting out. That's where you've been given every chance to believe, and you die and you stand before the Lord on Judgment Day. Now you have no hope. That's scary to think about. So, back on topic. That's just about adding into theology, getting to know what is truly in this book. We don't want to be those people who are saying, well, we don't want to be Judaizers, as Paul says in the Galatians, those who say that you have to be under circumcision, or which was brought before the Jerusalem Council in chapter 15 of Acts. We want to be those who stand firmly on the word. And sometimes when we have things like this, that can be fine for us, but it's not a tool I'd use for outreach. I wouldn't give this to someone and say, read this, because then they'll read it and they'll get into the Bible and say, well, Christians can't even agree what should be in the Bible. You know what I mean? Things about, on the sixth day, with the evil ones watching, God formed a new creature from the dust of the ground. God did form man from the dust of the ground according to the word. But there's nothing in the word about the evil ones watching, or Abraham not being an idol worshiper. It's those, he could have not been. But that's not something that I would teach. That's not something I would write. If I was the author of this, I would not have written that, because it goes beyond the word. And we're not meant to go beyond the word. We want to exegete. We want to take our meanings out of the word, not eisegete, which is, in my opinion, what this is doing. That means I'm reading my opinions into the word. So I read that, he called Abraham. Abraham must have been upright and righteous, and he must have believed in God. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. It says God came to Abraham as a chosen person. He could have been upright, like Noah. That's Noah that was upright, not Abraham. It doesn't tell us Abraham's character. Okay, guys. I hope that you're edified by this. My biggest point, I guess, is get into the word. Get into the word and find out what it says, and find out what's there. Truthfully, hide it away in your heart. Learn it, read it, study it, memorize it. I don't know what else I can say. You should be seeing a review of this Bible coming up on the channel here soon. The ESV Reader's Bible in 1 volume. I'm hoping to do one of the ESV Reader's Bible in 6 volumes here soon. I'm not, the logistics on that, I'm not sure whether I'm going to have the whole thing in front of you or whether I'm just going to pick a few volumes or what. You guys have seen it. You know that I have it and I love it. I just couldn't do a review of this one that would do it justice. There was just too many things that I was sitting there. I'd have to cut this out. I'd have to refute this. I'd have to go back and forth between the biblical text and this text continuously. That just my review was going too long. And so I guess it comes down to one thing, that the one question that I always ask of each Bible when I'm reviewing it, and that is it useful? I don't have any of my, yes I do, I have it sitting right here. Is it useful? If you look at when I set up my reviews, that's the question that I get down here, is usefulness. And so I'd say yes, it's useful just to kind of turn your eyes to something different, just to have some fun. But I wouldn't use this as a primary source. I wouldn't, for example, I wouldn't start in a storybook Bible and then go to this. I would start in a storybook Bible and then move into a real Bible, whether it's a children's translation, like something like the NIRV or the International Children's Bible, which is very low level reading, easy for them to understand, or even whether it's, if you have a brainy teenager that can jump right into the NIV or something, then and comprehend. Definitely, that's where I would go. I would just go straight into a translation, so that way they can read what's there and be the leader of your family. For all of my men who are watching, lead family devotions. Lead some family devotions. Okay, guys, because it brings about a heart where they want to see God. My daughter wants me to rebind her Bible because she sees me rebinding Bible. She sees me loving being in this book, and I mean, she loves books because we read books as a family. We read books. I read books. I'm constantly reading. Right now, I'm reading Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Excellent book. I'm reviewing some books. I got one from Voice of the Martyrs. I got 3 from the Our Daily Bread. And I'm constantly reading and constantly reading. I'm reading stuff right now by William Lane Craig and by Boethius and by I'm rereading the Didache and reading rereading the Apostolic Fathers and getting into that. I mean, if you want to talk about reading, like, that's a chunk of reading the Apostolic Fathers. So just read and lead some family devotions. Moms, spur your children to read. I mean, it's, Jews were called Jews because they were sat on their moms' laps, and that's something that's important. So to end right here, really comes down to, guys, that lead your family in learning to believe in something better. With that, I want to close because that's our prayer. If you like this video, please go down and hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. I pray that until next time, we're helping you to believe in something better.